Are we all ready? All right. Welcome, everyone. I know it's right after lunch, so you're kind of feeling full and sleepy, maybe. But let's get to the show. So this panel discussion is where we have the industry leaders to talk about what kind of cybersecurity threats there are in the current Web3 ecosystem and how we're working hard to actually secure it. And as our panelists today, we have Gal from Hypernative, Ido from Blokade, and Tiago from Crypto ISAC. Can each of you give a brief introduction about yourselves to our audience, starting from Gal?
Hi everyone. I'm Gal Sagi, co-founder and CEO of Hypernative. Hypernative is a real-time security and fraud prevention company. We help detect hacks, exploit, and security incidents before they happen, and then help prevent them to chains, protocols, big asset managers, and exchanges, and essentially helping protect both on-chain and off-chain attacks.
Thank you. Ido?
Hey everyone, I'm Ido. I'm one of the co-founders and CEO at Blokade. Blokade works with some of the biggest companies in crypto to help protect them, their users, their infrastructure from fraud, phishing, different kind of hacks. We work with some of the biggest wallets, some of the biggest exchanges, protocols, asset managers, and kind of anyone in the space to help detect and kind of prevent various different threats happening on chain.
Great. Tiago?
Hello, everyone. I'm Tiago Assunção. I'm a technical director at the Crypto ISAC. I have been working in security for 25 years now, originally in offensive and defensive security, finding vulnerabilities. Then I did move into the enterprise world, working for black companies like BlackBerry and doing consultancy for the big techs. And about 4 years ago, I joined the crypto space to do security research on wallets. And then I was a secure software development lead for the side chain, Bitcoin side chain called the Rootstock. And more recently, I joined the Crypto ISAC, where I lead all the data sharing and the analytics platform. Basically, what my day-to-day job is to look for what kind of data can we possibly do to leverage and make it actionable for threat intelligence. So to prevent, but also to stop ongoing attacks against our members. Basically, the Crypto ISAC is a for non-profit organization where our members receive and share data with us. And again, we basically look at that data, at the data on-chain and off-chain, and try to identify patterns and attacks or any other indicators that can make, that can prevent and stop ongoing attacks to our members and the community.
Great, thank you. All right, let's start with the current threat landscape. Each of you sees attacks from different vantage points. Gal and Ido from real-time on-chain and off-chain monitoring, threat monitoring that spans both, on-chain and off-chain attacks, and Tiago from cross-industry intelligence. To ground our conversation in reality, could each of you share a recent security incident or a new attack vector that you see and find particularly significant, the ones that keep you up at night, right? What does that tell us about the sophistication of these attackers today? So if each one of you, in whichever order you want to go, kind of share what kind of attacks you think it was very interesting and significant, and what they tell about the attackers. I guess we start from the reverse order this time.
Yeah, I was just talking to Ido a couple of minutes ago, and he was telling me about the incident that just happened this night. And apparently, to answer your question, that's what kept you up all night, right?
Yeah.
I believe supply chain attacks is one of the biggest challenges that we're going to have, not only with the crypto security, but with cybersecurity at all. Like tracking those incidents, tracking manipulation of code bases, tracking individuals who have access to that data, and how to alter and keep track of all the supply chain from the software framework. That's really a challenge. And so today, I don't know if you guys are aware of it, but NPM, which is one of the largest supply chain providers to some of the biggest JavaScript and other frameworks has been attacked. And with that, you get to manipulate the entire ecosystem. Whoever uses those libraries, those frameworks are, a potential target. So that's really a problem. And how can you approach it with the scale and the precision level that needs to be done? That's really what keeps me up.
Thank you. What keeps you up at night?
Yeah, so
similar story, but
yeah. So Santiago stole mine.
I stole your story. Sorry about that.
all good, all good. No, so there's a lot, right? I think one thing that's kind of unique about this space is that beyond kind of even cybersecurity more traditionally, right? We're all kind of building these kind of 24/7, 365 kind of markets, right? That are like on by default all the time. And so our users never sleep, attackers never sleep, and so obviously we as a result of that rarely sleep.
We're kind of exposed all the time, throughout.
Yeah, it's like crazy, right? There's no banking holidays.
Sure.
And so yeah, I think one example is just recently last night, right, where for those unaware, right, a supply chain attack affecting a really popular kind of package in kind of the JavaScript ecosystem, or not a package, actually multiple packages, kind of totaling about over 1 billion downloads worth of kind of was compromised. And so this kind of highlights that I think the threats don't only come from on-chain exposures, but they come from off-chain exposures too. And so when you think about obviously kind of on-chain threats holistically, there's it's just a new attack path. It's just a new attack vector, and everything else that kind of plays into effect is still relevant, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're looking at kind of supply chain attacks, for example, if you're looking at your cloud infrastructure, for example, or you're looking at this kind of new attack, this new attack vector, kind of more specifically, all these different things kind of come into effect all the time. And so in this kind of threat that took place, obviously. Our affected users were potentially anyone that was kind of signing any kind of transaction. Basically, what happened, if you guys are unfamiliar, is a piece of malware was embedded across these different kind of node modules or node packages. That malware is like a crypto jacker, where basically it looks at any kind of requests that are coming in or coming out of your machine, replaces those kind of requests, the associated kind of crypto addresses in those requests with potentially attacker-controlled addresses, and then attempts to kind of circumvent and kind of attack any kind of signing infrastructure.
Right. So I think we're seeing kind of, you said new attack vector, but it's kind of old but new, right?
Yeah.
So it's been already kind of been there for Web 2, but now we're seeing that affecting Web 3 and on-chain as well. So I think that's a very interesting point. Is there any Web3 specific vulnerabilities or attacks that you think of, Gal?
Yeah, I think that the nice thing that we see is that if I look at the 3 years of hypernative operation, the attack vector changed quite often, very dynamic. So 2 years ago, there were a lot of on-chain attacks related to smart contract vulnerabilities and code. In the last few months in the year, we see a lot of operational risk of people compromising the admin or the operational wallet and then changing or doing everything that they want with the protocol. So I think the key thing that we see is that there are endless kind of risk vectors, and even if you're doing everything perfect, you can't stop someone from maybe clicking a phishing link and then compromising your code in that. So you really need some sort of an operational and real-time processes that are not manually based. And I think as the interesting thing about crypto in general is that it's evolving very, very rapidly with new kind of protocols, new kind of things, and the risk vectors are just increasing on a daily basis and changing. It's really hard to follow up and track everything. So
that's very true. If you wake up, you see a lot of new protocols, new attacks. I think Web3 also presents a unique security challenges, right? You mentioned, Web2 security affecting now Web3, but also examples like, the very nature of Web3 where it's immutability and self-custodiness, like these also pose some of these fundamental differences compared to Web2. So could you elaborate on why traditional Web2 security models that we have, like patching servers or like blocking and blacklisting, blocklisting IP addresses, are often insufficient for protecting assets and users in this new paradigm? Like what makes Web3 different and more difficult?
So I've had that question before, and I think that's a great question. I think the key difference here is that typically crypto projects are born with hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars held to them. So that alone is a big difference, right? It's not like if someone hacks an operating system and targets an individual, like the typical 0-day against an individual or against infrastructure, that is not directly going to impact all those funds, and again, hundreds of millions of dollars. So when we're talking about a bridge or a new DeFi protocol, or even an exchange, you really need to start thinking about security from ground up. So whenever starting a project, I think the key difference here is, again, as I said, you do need security from day zero. I think that's a key difference that I do see. Then, of course, there's the complexities about the protocols, the blockchain consensus model and all that stuff. But again, at the end of the day, that's software, right?
Yeah.
So.
All right, thank you for sharing your thoughts. Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I think the key difference is that it's just the time to value. Right? Like when you think about like the perspective of an attacker, right? At the end of the day, like attackers in this space are like financially motivated. Generally, like attackers in the world are either financially motivated or they're like nation state actors, which are sometimes financially motivated, but sometimes just work on espionage. And so like when you think about like the liquidity for an exploit or kind of an attack, right? In traditional like Web2, ultimately attackers are looking to steal data, which then they monetize. And because that takes a lot of time, right? One, like stealing data actually takes time, and two, monetizing it takes a long time. The time span in which we as folks that try to defend these things is just much longer. Yeah. And then when we kind of take that same model to crypto, ultimately you're stealing keys to the bank, basically, right? Like in all these different cases, no matter what you're doing, the crown jewels here are not data, but rather money. And the beauty is, well, this money moves really, really quickly. The time to value is also much quicker. And so just the like sheer liquidity of I have a vulnerability, I want to monetize that, is just infinitely faster in these different places, and that forces us to need to be infinitely faster than traditional solutions.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. You want to?
Yeah, I actually agree with the speed. I see, like, when you think about traditional cybersecurity, right, you have a SOC and you start getting alerts, and then you start investigating the alerts and trying to prioritize them. In crypto, a lot of times the order is actually different. You first want to react really, really fast because the incident can end in a transaction, essentially. Sure. And then you want to actually investigate after you do some sort of a remediation of a pause or a moving of funds or something like that. So the ability to do that in a high accuracy manner is super important, and the ability to react fast after the fact is also important. One other point that I think sometimes people misses is that it's also what we saw, at least, is that the entire technical stack is a bit different. You can't take solutions that exist in other domains and apply them to Web3. The context is very, very different, and you need to create tailored solution for this space.
Awesome. That kind of reminds me because when we used to do a lot of postmortems or coming up with the proof of concept exploits for a certain vulnerabilities, as an attacker, you know for sure, and you can kind of prove that this exploit is going to work, right? And knowing that as an attacker is a huge advantage before you launch an attack, you can actually simulate every single transaction and know it's going to work before you launch an attack. So I think that also poses some difference. But Gal, you brought a great point, which is Web 2 and Web 3. Web 3 basically has inherent differences that kind of asks for a specific solutions to customize for a Web 3 field. So now that we've established unique challenges in Web 3, let's explore these cutting-edge solutions being built to address these issues. Each of you is tackling this from a different vital angle. So we'll start with Gal. Hypernative focuses on preventing threats in real time before the damage is done, right? So could you walk us through a memorable case where you detected and helped stop a major exploit as it was happening? And doing so, hopefully you can explain the core mechanics of your on-chain monitoring system and how you tackle these challenges on-chain that lacks public mempool sometimes, like Solana or various rollups.
Yeah, so I will start with actually the last point that you mentioned about the mempool, and I think this is the assumption when we started Hypernative. People kept telling us that you can't really prevent hacks and exploit in real time in the space because everything is very fast. The only thing to do is an audit and reactively after a hack try to recover the funds and investigate, and we quite quickly found out that this is not the case, that attacks are not really happening at one transaction. A lot of times they're happening at multiple transactions, and you can have a lot of indicative signals of attacks before they are happening. And this is part of our IP at Hypernative, is that we're able to basically classify these different kind of preparation of attackers before they're trying to do an attack and find out who are they going to attack before they're actually executing them. And the nice thing about the blockchain space is because of the transparency, we can actually do that at scale. And this has led to essentially detecting over the last 3 years, I would say almost all, if not all, the hacks and exploits that happen, and 99% of them before the hack actually happened, and that's sometimes before like minutes, a few blocks. Just a week ago, there was our system actually alerted on a protocol that is not the customer, Venus protocol, where the system identified that one of the users of the protocol actually got phished. They gave an approval for an attacker based on it was the Zoom issue that they had. And the attacker actually delegate the funds from that user to themselves, to the contracts. Hypernative captured that in the system. We manually alerted that team about that. They actually paused the protocol and saved around $12 million.
$12 million, that's a lot of money.
In that act. Yeah, and over the last 2-3 years, we have many different similar cases of saving millions of dollars, and we see the ROI of real-time security systems is just very, very net positive.
Wow, thank you for sharing. That's very impressive. And I think it's very important that attackers, often as being humans, they have preparation work, and it doesn't happen like one shot most of the time. So, kind of detecting those without too much false positive is very important, and I think you guys are doing really well on that. All right, Ito, Blockaid takes a proactive approach by integrating directly into users' wallet, the final frontier of defense, if you will. Can you share us more on your simulation technology? How does it simulating a transaction or signature request before a user approves it, preventing devastating losses from wallet drainers and phishing schemes? And what kind of unique insights has this deep integration given you?
Yeah, so a little bit on how kind of the simulation works. Basically, I think transaction simulation isn't something that's like inherently new to the space, right? Like we've seen solutions do this, whether that's kind of the development lifecycle or all sorts of different things. I think kind of what's really critical is and that we've seen is doing this like really, really quickly and then doing it at scale, right? You think about like your users, you think about like these different applications. Basically, what they're trying to do is not hinder the user experience, rather improve it. And so one, kind of doing these things in a really, really time-efficient way is like very, very difficult, oftentimes requiring us to go and build custom nodes and kind of fork these different types of infrastructure to go and do that. And then two is doing it in a way, obviously, right, that doesn't kind of hinder the user experience by having too many false positives or things like that as well, right? So you know, I think by this point we scan probably on the orders of close to 500 million transactions every single month, with very, very, very little false positives when it comes to kind of the sheer number of volume that we see in the space, and kind of the scale in which we do it and the speed in which we do it is pretty crazy, right? And like, in from a time perspective, and then just in terms of like the data that we see. So integrating across like these wallets in the space has given us this kind of, you know, one can think of them almost as like these sensors, right, that go and tell us what users are doing, what's good, what's bad, and kind of how we can go and train our engines to go and detect these things and kind of find things in that way. So, you know, we started with kind of thinking about it in the sense of, okay, great, let's find things that are known bad. Right? Let's find things that we see are kind of, you know, very, very much obviously malicious. And just because the data we see, we can also kind of really easily tell what's good. Right? We see users interacting with all sorts of different things, and kind of we know, hey, this is something that's good. And so now we have this really great map of what's good, what's bad, and everything kind of in the middle. And so that's how we kind of see it, and kind of leveraging this kind of technology is like, you know, we mentioned this incident from last night, right? Yeah. And so, you know, I think it's like a really great example of just the coverage that we have in kind of the space. And so, you know, after detecting these different things, like we saw that the actual damage in hindsight on chain, you know, wasn't more than actually $60, which was like insane, right? It's like this massive compromising tons of packages. We saw hundreds of transactions kind of attempt to flow through our system, but ultimately, you know, only $60 was stolen on chain, which is like pretty insane.
That's crazy. I guess while being directly integrated deeply with these infrastructures and have more data, you said you're basically doing data analytics to kind of better understand what's good and what's bad. You're setting up the baseline, trying to find anomaly. I think that allows you to do more interesting thing and in more effective way. But I guess that also puts a lot of responsibility and pressure on top of your shoulders, because now you have to think about scalability, usability, and security of it as well, because we don't want to be breached because of your solution either. So, right, I think that's very important, and what you guys are doing and building are very impressive. All right, I think both of your solutions sound like they rely on sophisticated pattern recognition and experience and your insights that are built into these solutions. And that kind of brings up to the topic of AI, because we can't really, you know, not talk about AI these days. Are we seeing any true AI-driven attacks in the wild yet? Or is it still kind of mostly hype? More importantly, how are you leveraging AI, if you are using AI at all, or machine learning to cut through the noise and identify these malicious activity with high precision? Is that still based on, you know, traditional machine learning base, or are we still trying to use other AI technologies and techniques these days? Are we trying out new things? I'm kind of curious on these front end. So yeah, we can start with Gal.
Yeah, so Hypernative was created as an AI-first company. The team experiences in applying machine learning to solve cybersecurity issues in traditional cybersecurity areas like endpoint protection and fraud detection. So a lot of the way that we detect things is based on AI and machine learning, because in the end, and this comes back to the first sentence that we talked about, the attack vector and the kind of attacks that are happening is changing. And if you really want to capture that next attack that no one saw before, you can't really rely on heuristics or things that are checking for things that happened in the past. So a lot of these detections allow us to get to this detection rate, and I think as adversaries are starting to use AI, because now AI is becoming more and more commodity, and everyone can start using it at some capacity, then it becomes even more important to leverage the same capabilities to protect everyone in the space. We are already seeing leveraging of AI. A lot a lot is not just about the phishing and the scamming component, but also about how to create this scam infrastructure and fraud as a service networks that are being created. It's very easy to create these kind of networks. And this also emphasized the need to really detect them very, very early in the deployment process, because if you want to prevent people from losing funds, you need to have very quick detections.
Wow, that's kind of threatening because people are already using AI not to just scam people with better text and context, but also using vibe coding to build these infrastructures really fast and easy. That's frightening. All right, Ido, do you have other stories to share?
Yeah, I think it's important to discern between what you said, right, machine learning versus kind of AI or generally kind of these general purpose like LLMs, right? I think obviously we started the company kind of with this focus on kind of these machine learning models, which we've built in a way that's kind of really sophisticated, but over time, we've kind of become to rely on kind of more and more of these LLM models, right? I think we found that they've been incredibly helpful in reverse engineering pieces of code, including kind of bytecode on various EVM or SVM or other kind of chains that are kind of difficult to reverse engineer and kind of and compute about. We found them kind of incredibly helpful for kind of extracting IOCs in real time. We found them incredibly helpful for creating these human readable representations of all sorts of different things. We have found that machine learning based models are actually more effective when it comes to detection. Although using some of the embeddings from some of these more general purpose LLMs have actually been pretty useful to then kind of feed through more traditional machine learning models. So to answer your question directly, and then I think when we think about attackers and how they're operating, is I agree with what Gal said, right? I think just the sheer speed in which kind of attackers can spin up a website that looks exactly the same and operates in a really, really similar way. It's just really, really fast. Yeah. And then I also think that as we all have started using more of these LLMs as almost like a second brain, we've seen attackers do the same, right? And so when they see some kind of mitigation across the network or in some kind of way, right, to bypass that, whether that's a traditional in traditional speak, right, a simple XSS or something like that you're trying to game and kind of go through. Now you have this kind of tool that can help you talk through it, and you can do that much faster. So very similarly, when you have solutions, like Blockade that attackers across the world are trying to bypass all the time, we just see kind of more and more attempts in a similar way.
Wow, great. Thank you all for your insightful answers. I think it stresses the point where attacks are becoming more sophisticated, faster at scale with AI's help, and so we have to also integrate that. But I guess individual solutions are powerful, but no single entity can secure the entire ecosystem, right? So this brings us to the core theme of our discussion today, which is global collaboration. So Tiago, this is the very reason Crypto ISAC exists. Your mission at Crypto ISAC is to build that global immune system for Web3. Can you describe the structure of your threat intelligence framework, and what are the biggest operational hurdles in getting competing projects and ecosystems kind of to share their sensitive information and insights together? So how do you standardize these data from attack patterns to indicators of compromise to make it actionable for everyone? I think that's a very hard challenge. So I'm curious how you're tackling that issue.
So that's a big challenge because when you need to think about a community, the size of what we have with the crypto and the blockchains, number one, there's various types of companies, organizations, foundations behind it. Each of them have their own policies, their own culture, their own philosophies. So having to sit in the middle and get all these guys to converge and share information with us is a challenge per se. So navigating through that is a day-to-day activity, and it's actually interesting to talk to these guys and try to understand their reality, their pain points, and see what we as the Crypto ISAC can effectively do to help them and get their information to help the rest of the members. So yes, it is interesting, but at the same time, it is rewarding. And there's like just one example that I can give to you, where I felt that we made a difference. I was flying to Toronto a couple of months ago for a conference, Consensus, and I was connecting at Washington, D.C., and then I get a call from a friend and ex-colleague, and he was telling me that the Curve DeFi protocol was being attacked. And what happened was not an on-chain attack, but rather one of those, Web2 leveraged attacks where they had hijacked their front-end DNS, and they were providing malware, actually a drainer, through an asset that was hosted in one of the biggest infrastructure providers, which I'm not naming, but can think about it. And they were trying to reach out to these guys to shut down that asset that was, providing the drainer to their end users, and they were not being able to. They couldn't get the right person, and they just didn't know the protocol to get to those guys. And in a matter of minutes, I got the information from their CISO, and in 5 minutes, I was talking to the CISO, and in less than 1 hour, we shut it down. And we prevented like millions and millions of dollars from being stolen from their end users. So I believe that's kind of the cooperation that we enable, and that I think crypto ISAC really makes a difference with.
That's amazing. Like we had our experience with similar story that you just told us, which is we were trying to find the owner of the projects or people who are responsible for the target we're trying to protect, and it takes ages to find the people, like the right person to contact, and being able to have a network and the contact points like is a very important step, and it seems like crypto ISAC is also building on top of that network, not just the information that we're sharing. So that's not an easy job. I feel like your job requires a lot of patience, tenacity, and of course technical capabilities, obviously, to analyze these and triage these attacks. So thank you for trying to shine the light on the importance of sharing this information to better prepare ourselves and learn from the past and protect ourselves from the future. So this idea of immune system is powerful. For all of you, how do we make this a reality though, right? Like we know all these important. So like maybe Tiago, you can start. Could you share a success story where, like, I guess you just kind of mentioned it, but is there any other incident where cross-ecosystem collaboration, like perhaps between ISAC, security firm, and the exchange, or other jurisdiction, law enforcement, working together, kind of thwarted a major cross-chain attack, like a bridge hack or large-scale phishing campaign? I know you just mentioned one, but is there any other interesting story that you can share?
Yeah, I think that was the example that I just gave was an interesting one. But at the same time, they're perhaps not cross-chain, but that potentially affect all the players. And it really depends on the information sharing and the speed of this information that we get our hands first and share that with our members, which is a lot of the DPRK threats. And a recent incident was one of the largest exchanges in the US. They were under attack, and in a matter of hours, they had got us with names, IDs, CVs that were being used, and a lot of other technique and tactics that were being used by these guys to get hired with this exchange. And almost in near real time, we shared that information with the rest of our members. So, these guys, when they act, they do that at scale, and they target not just one exchange, but they do that with many others. So the fact that we could get that information real quickly and share that with the rest of the community, helped potentially prevent those threat actors to infiltrate those companies.
That's fascinating. Gal and Ito, how do your platforms plug into this broader collaborative network? Starting with Ito, I guess, since you're...
Yeah, I think ultimately, it starts with like relationships, right? It starts with like meetings like these, and it starts with having these kind of relationships with folks like Santiago and others across the ecosystem. I think from those relationships, it then kind of progresses to kind of building this level of trust, where we trust that there's some information that we can share, and it'll be used reliably to protect our users or to protect kind of the ecosystem in a really kind of great way. I think Crypto ISAC has done a really great job of kind of bringing together kind of the right kind of people and establishing themselves in a way that kind of ensures that trust. But I also think like we could do a much better job of connecting these things in a way that is value aligned and kind of continues to push the ecosystem forward. But I think it ultimately starts with these kind of relationships and going forward from there.
All right, thank you. How about you, Gal?
So Hypernative tried to volunteers at a lot of two of our team members are part of SEAL 911. Over the last 2 years, Hypernative helped to a lot of non-customer protocols as well, because I think that when there is an incident and someone get hacked, that in the end affect everyone. It affects also, of course, it affects the protocol that got hacked and the people
the
that
ecosystem, though, right?
Yeah, it affects the reputation, right, of what we are trying all to build and this ecosystem that we are all part of. So we are trying through the same thing that Ido mentioned, relationship, the partners, volunteering where it makes sense, and even trying to help when we see something that is happening.
Oh, that's amazing of you, helping out. Even though they're not customer per se, still helping out so that we have better ecosystem and stronger ecosystem together. All right, I think we've covered the threats, the tools, and the need for the global alliance. Finally, I think since we're short on time, let's look at the horizon, right? As we move towards mass adoption of Web3, what is the North Star for Web3 security? In 3 to 5 years, what will have changed, and what does a truly secure and resilient Web3 ecosystem look like to you? Starting from, yeah.
I think that, and I think all three of us here are trying to do that, is we started in a very reactive kind of industry that is looking at security incident as something that must happen and reacting after the fact. And I think we're all moving into a more real-time, proactive manner, where it's not just about identifying risk after the fact, it's actually preventing them and protecting builders in the space, users in the space, and big financial institutions and exchanges that are part of this ecosystem. And I think that's what we'll see, more infrastructure built for that, because I think we all prove that it's a possibility. People can save funds. You don't need to get hacked in crypto. And I do hope that the industry over time will realize it and adopt more solutions like that.
Great. How about you, Ida?
I think a lot of it has to do, with the maturity of the industry. It's not just about us, right? We can build solutions for days. It's about, working with our customers and working with the kind of the ecosystem to kind of adopt those and kind of standardize those in different ways. I think there's a lot of work that we do, like on the policy side, right? That's good for for everyone here to go and kind of educate lawmakers on the fact that we don't just have to think about crypto as illicit funds and where those funds go and where they're coming from. But we can also think about crypto as networks of computers, and as we have rules and regulations. Such as like data protection and kind of data privacy, and other kind of standards in traditional computer networks and kind of in the internet, across the internet, similar standards and similar kind of rules and regulations can exist in crypto. I think one thing that kind of is an eyesore for me is just how many times we talk about, like, if you look at like pieces of legislation, if you just like look at how many times the words illicit finance shows up versus how many times the words like cybersecurity show up,
Yeah.
and so I think working to solve some of that can really kind of push forward the space.
Awesome. Thank you.
So yes, I think maturity first. So standards, just one example. We are supporting MITRE to create their equivalent MITRE attack, which is called ADAPT. So that's one thing answering to when you asked about standards. So I think there's a lot of maturity, in processes, in again security development for these projects. But when it comes to technology, you have companies like Blokade and Hypernative who are like providing incredible solutions. But I believe like the protocols themselves will also evolve. So we have, I don't know, there's one of our members which is called the Leo, and they are a privacy-first a blockchain, layer 1 blockchain. And these guys, what they do is like the transactions are private, but if there's an incident and they want to, investigate a potentially malicious activity, they can actually, for a compliance purpose, undeclassify that information. So that's a protocol level kind of involvement, right? So again, I do believe there's a lot of, a lot of portions of the industry that really needs maturity from different aspects, both, from processes, standards, but also the technology itself.
Great. Thank you. So a lot of great insights came out. Being proactive, that being first, like instead of response, we want to do proactive responses, and maturity of the industry as well as policies, standardization, education. All these are, I think, very important. And I think Web3 is a field where things are constantly evolving and changing. So being able to adapt to these situation and changes are very important. So I think that brings us up to the end of the time. I want to extend a huge thank you to our incredible panelists, Gal, Ido, and Tiago. The clarity and the on-the-ground expertise you've shared has been truly invaluable. So thank you so much. And everyone, please give a round of applause. So yeah, to our audience, thank you for your attention. And the future of Web3 is in all of our hands. So please join me in giving panelists one more round of applause, and we'll end with this session. Thank you. 감사합니다.